Hey everybody, this is Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome to episode 14, I believe, of my Out of the Park Baseball 18 playthrough of the Phillies. I'm kind of starting to lose count of the episodes here, but I've now gotten all the way through the off season. We're just at the start of spring training. I've set up my lineups and my pitching rotation, and I'm hoping to get through, if not the whole spring training in this episode, at least we'll get through a big chunk of it and see how the team's going to do. But I just wanted to start off and let you know how my off season went. It was in some ways uneventful, and in other ways, I'm hoping that I addressed what I needed to address for the off season. I kind of went into the off season knowing there were two areas that I needed to focus on and improve. One was I really needed that number one ace in my starting rotation, and then I needed to add some power to my lineup. And I think indirectly, I'm hoping that I improved in both those areas, and we'll take a look at that and see. But this is the off-season summary by team screen, which I use a lot during the off-season, kind of let me know how I'm doing with the rest of the league and the division. And if you look by, if it's sorted by the WAR gained, and if you look, we're a little bit better than half of the league. We're in the negative, but just barely. And in their division, only the Mets are positive. They're at 1.3 WAR gained. And looking further down the list, Atlanta and Washington, those two teams had a pretty rough offseason. So I'm hoping that might Miami not too far behind us, but they didn't really improve too much either. So I'm hoping that's going to be a good sign for us going into this next season. But for me, the moves that I made, I lost a few players to free agency, mostly through just the guys I didn't want to offer in salary arbitration. But there are a few who I think it was time for them to be dropped anyway. So I wasn't too upset by what I lost. In terms of what I picked up, the biggest signing is what I'm hoping will be it will address that lack of power in the lineup. Is I picked up Rafael Devers from Boston, who has had a great career. He's a 4.5 star player, both from my scout and OSA. He's got some good overall ratings in contact and gap power and power, and he's a pretty decent defensive third baseman. If you look at his career, he broke in 2018, and he's had a really good overall career. 4-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. He's just short of 1,800 hits, 265 home runs, just got over 1,000 RBIs last year. His average career is 295, but he's kind of dipped the last couple of years, so I'm hoping that he's going to go back to the form he had a few years ago. He's still just 32, so I know he's slipped off his pace the last few years, but I'm hoping he's got some life in him, and I've actually had some luck in this playthrough. For instance, a few years ago, I picked up Nolan Arenado, who was kind of about in the same situation. He was 32, 33. He hadn't had the previous 3 years, he hadn't really done what he had done early in his career, and so I got him for a good value. I got him for a good contract, and he really had just a great comeback couple of seasons with me. Well over 30 home runs, I think over 100 RBIs both years, and it kind of I only had him signed for 2 years, and it kind of turned his career around. He actually signed a big contract after he was through with my team. So I'm hoping that's going to happen with Devers. And the contract that I got on him is not that bad at all. It's $7.87 million a year, and that's going to be for 4 years, but the last two of those, I got a vesting option on him. So he's going to have to produce past those first 2 seasons to stay at that salary on my team. So I was happy with that. And I had talked about in that last episode, Milwaukee, who are dead last in terms of WAR gained over the offseason. They had a guy who I was really keen on and would have loved to sign. He was probably one of the hotter free agents in the market. it was Alfredo Santana. And his 5-star player, he's 29 years old, had just a remarkable run there, 6 solid years for Milwaukee. And going into free agency, he didn't look like he was going to ask for much. And then when free agency started, the number just kept going up and up and up. And you can see he signed a long-term deal, 6 seasons with the Yankees for $25.8 million. And if I could have gotten him for around even 20 or below, I would have probably pulled the trigger on him because I think he's a much better player than Devers. But I just couldn't go that high. It wouldn't have left me any room for the next few seasons to re-sign some of the guys I got to sign, and so I had to take a pass on him, and that's why I was really happy to pick up Devers for what I did. And then the other thing I did in terms of off-season moves, I picked up a couple of guys in trade because I'm pretty sold on Barge at second. I think he's going to hopefully hold down that second base job for a few years. So I traded away 2 of my better second base prospects. I got this starting pitcher, Luis Urrutia. He's, in terms of like his potential, my scout has him at a 2.5 star. He's a 3.5 star in the OSA, but I thought his numbers looked pretty good, his stuff rating especially, and he had a great season last year in both single A and high A. So I think he may have been a sleeper pick, I'm hoping anyway, and I could afford to lose the prospect I traded for him. And then the other one was a first base prospect who my scout thinks he's a 4-star potential. OSA has him at 3.5, but he's got some power. The scouting report on him is that he's good for 35 home runs a season. He's got good personality ratings. He's listed as a leader in the clubhouse. He's a good defensive first baseman, and I don't really have any prospects in the system right now. I would really like to develop somebody who's going to come up and stay with my team for a while at first base. I really would love to have somebody who, if his numbers pan out to what his potential looks like, then he's somebody who could really anchor the lineup power-wise for a few years. So that was the 2 trades I made. And then the other move in terms of pitching, addressing that problem, over the offseason, Mike Farr, who is 4 stars both for my scout and OSA, my scout really thinks he's capable right now to anchor a rotation, be the number 1 starter that I need. And he came off the DL quicker than I expected. He went through, every once in a while you'll have a player who's down for several months. They'll just heal quicker than normal, and he did. And so I wasn't able to find anyone who really fit that ace label to me in the offseason who wasn't like $25 million a year. And that would have been a gamble on some of those guys. A lot of injury-prone pitchers, and it wasn't a good mix, and so I didn't want to gamble on it. And I'm going with what I went with last year, which was that balanced starting rotation from the first spot, which will be Farr, all the way down through the 5th spot, which right now is probably going to be Rhea, who his ratings took a dip, but I still think he's got some good potential. 3.5 star from OSA and 3 from my guy, and he had a great postseason for me and a pretty solid year. And another move that I made, which I'm hoping will help this, is I upgraded my pitching coach. The pitching coach I had last year, he was rated at just decent, and his contract was up anyway, but I picked up Adam Butler, who's got a good reputation. He prefers working with ground ballers, so with my infield defense, that'll help out. And if you look, he was the pitching coach with the Nationals for a lot of years, and mainly through their best years of this playthrough. They made the playoffs, looks like 6 years of the 9 that he was with them, and some of those years his numbers look really good. Maybe hit or miss in those last 3 numbers, but he's got a good reputation, so I'm hoping that he will improve some of the guys on the team, on the staff. So that's how it's looking going into spring training for me. A couple other things I wanted to touch on before we got to the actual playing out some of the spring training games is in the off season in general. One thing that happened in terms of the Hall of Fame voting, it doesn't happen too often, but this year nobody got elected, and I'll pull up those results here. Um, Let me see. Should be early in Hall of Fame voting results. So the closest was Felix Hernandez. He's at 69.8 in his third year, and Kenley Jansen got for his first season, he got more votes than I expected. So he may have a chance. A lot of it's going to depend on who comes up for vote next year. I don't really know who might be coming in, but some of these guys may not have a good chance of making the Hall of Fame in this playthrough. One guy who I thought it was interesting, if you're a real life Phillies fan, something I didn't mention when I was talking about Jake Arrieta in the last episode, but when he played out his career with Chicago in this playthrough for that I've been doing, I actually picked him up in 2019 for the Phillies, and he was injured for a little bit of that year. He had an okay season and was on pace to have, a little bit off his mark, but he was still a pretty decent pitcher for me. And I think it was one of those situations where, let me look at his history here. He made it to the All-Star team that year for me, but he declined this contract option that I had on him. I think I signed him for 2 years, with one being a player option, and he became a free agency, and he signed a big contract with the Yankees. But I just thought it was kind of interesting. Sometimes this game will mimic real life, and that was kind of cool that Arrieta, well, I don't know if I could say that he was with my team before he was with the real life Phillies, because the sim was, I didn't pick him up until 2019. But hopefully he'll have a better career with the real team than he did with me. But I thought that was kind of cool. And I don't think there was anything else I was going to go over for the off season. So what I want to do now is just take a look at the pitching staff. I've kind of gone over the starters. I think my bullpen is looking pretty good. Castro's going to be the closer, with Ramos being the setup guy, and he might close if Castro stumbles. But I got a few 4 and 4.5 star guys here who I think are really going to help me out. And I've never really worried too much about the bullpen. I think last year we were third or so in bullpen ERA. I forget now, but we had a pretty good season. I'm hoping we'll repeat on that. In terms of the lineup, a few changes. And let me see, am I looking at this? Yeah, I want to look at my scout. There we go. So Kanan Smith is more than likely going to be the same setup as last year. He was going to platoon with McMillan and catching. Sluzarek, he went up a star in rating, or a half star in rating, for my scout over the offseason. He's going to be starting lineup against righties because he is so good. Look at that, 13 contact, 15 green all down the line. And then Evan White, who I picked up or signed for a couple years after the season was over, he'll be starting against lefties. Sean Barge is going to start in second. Oviedo is now 3.5 stars, but he's going to come off the bench with Devers starting, both against lefties and righties. And then Royce Lewis is now 5-star for my scout and OSA. I'm hoping he has a bounce back year and can play at least close to a full season. I'd settle for even like 146 games started. I'd settle for that at this point. In the outfield, though, I'm going to go with a little bit of a platoon situation, because I think Elman, and especially in the spring training, because Mast and Elman, they are rated very similar, but Mast, his ratings in the offseason have just gotten even better. He's 4-star from my scout and OSA. He has great power. I would hope that he could play up to those potential ratings. And if he does, I think this guy could be my starter for the next few years. He's still got a few years left of team control, so that would be great because Elman is, he's in the same situation. He's 3 years in the league, but against righties, he doesn't have as good of an eye as Mast, and I don't know if that'll play into it too much. But the big thing would be Ochoa is going to start. He's 5-star, 19 power now. He's been really solid for 3 years. The average hasn't been it hasn't been up there the whole time, but his power numbers are great and production is great. But I'm gonna platoon against lefties and go with Mast in left and Elman in right. And overall, I hope, because I don't think I did much platooning with Ochoa last year, so I'm hoping overall that's gonna help those power numbers too. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go through and sim a few weeks ahead and see how we look and hopefully stay away from the injury bug. Opening season is in April, and right away Mike Farr is injured, but it looks like it's going to be minimal. And he started that game and didn't look too bad. 3 1/3. 4 strikeouts, so let's hope this is just a blip. I don't want to get into a situation where he's going to be injured. Now Mike Logfeld, oh my gosh, and that's a moderate effect injury, so I'm going to have to sit him, I think, and I was really not wanting to do that. So it's going to have a moderate effect on his throwing. I'm really just not going to. I'm not going to risk that. Let's see how that's going to affect the lineup or the rotation here. And Ketchum is injured. Oh, God. It's like rolling the dice. You never know until you start playing how it's going to go. I'm probably going to go with Shrimshire, Gowdy, Rhea, and then I'm going to put Coriolan in here at 5th because he was the 5th starter last year, and see if that turns out okay. And not a good thing, not a good start. Devin Ketchum, who I really thought is going to turn into a great pitcher for me. Last year was his rookie year, and it wasn't too bad considering his age and his experience. He's going to be out for 12 months, so he's gone for the season. Big blow because I was just talking up that bullpen here before we started. Looks like Rocker, who's a former player of mine, he's going to be hurt again. He was always injury prone. That's why I didn't sign him. So what can I do now? So I've got a couple guys here in Berger and Castro. I think I'm going to bring those guys up and just see if they can contribute in that lineup. I think Berger, he's listed as an emergency starter, but I'm going to put him in middle relief, and Castro, who's a lefty, that's a good deal. He's got some pretty good numbers there. Potential 3.5 star from OSA. He might be ready. I'm gonna put him as a middle relief and then a lefty specialist. So luckily, I do have some depth there in the bullpen. So we got through the first week here. See if there's any big news. A trade for the Diamondbacks, looks like a couple minors, but first week we're 4-3, tied with the Nationals in the division lead. San Francisco's off to a tough start, 1-6, and Milwaukee, looking at who they lost, they could have a tough go of it this time. But it looks like we had a shutout in that last game against Milwaukee. Coriolan pitched a good game. Hussein looks like he had a home run. He's someone to look at as the season goes on, I think he could be somebody I might be able to trade if I need some depth later on. So let's go another week, and then we'll see how the team looks. And there's a trade proposal from Oakland. They're going to trade me Eric Keene for Mike McCartan, who is a minor league second baseman, who I've gotten, it's kind of odd, I've gotten a lot of trade offers for him in the offseason. He's a potential 2.5-star player. He's got decent ratings. He's really a good personality, got good personality ratings, and he's not going to really factor in on this team too much, but I don't need a 1-star first baseman. Well, they got a 2.5 potential, but nah, that's not a good deal. It's really hard. I've got the trading set to normal. It's really hard to get good offers from the AI. Derek Casey, big pitcher for Cincinnati, he's gone. Yeah, they just signed him this offseason, looks like, or picked him up this offseason. He's gone now for the year. And Jake Baker, not familiar with him. So Elman is going to be out now. Put him on the DL. He's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks, so he might be back before the season starts anyway. And that's going to impact. It's going to impact my lineup against lefties. I'm going to have to go back to Ochoa, and I'm going to put Neidiger, who was kind of a bench player I had last year. He's going to be playing for his job there. I don't know if he's going to stay up with the team, but I'm only going with 5 outfielders, and I typically like to go with 5 outfielders, but I think the way it's going to look this year, I might just go with 4, because I really like having Oviedo and Freeman both coming off the bench, and I don't want to get rid of either of those guys to make room for him. I'm going to put Lesane as the DH against righties, and maybe go with Poe here. And then Ochoa is going to have to take back over there for Elman and Wright. So hopefully that got it figured out there. Another trade proposal. Manny Machado's out for the year. Ooh, that's bad news. And he's a guy who, in this playthrough, he's getting close to some milestone numbers. He's at over 2,800 hits. He picked up his 500th home run last year, so hopefully he can bounce back from that. This is his free agent year, though, so you never know. Coley's gone for the year. I'm not familiar with him. Dave Stevens. Boston wants to trade me Christopher Armstrong for Dave Schrimsher. Well, right now, I can't afford to lose Schrimsher, so that's a no-go. And another big injury here, J.J. McConkey. Yeah, he's not a player I'm familiar with. So right now, we're 2 weeks in. We're 7-5, so we're leading the National League East in spring training. Barge looks like he's having a good start. Looking at the leaderboard here, Sluzarek looking pretty good there. He's tied for the league in doubles. Runs batted in, Sluzarek. Barge is leading the league in RBIs. But I want to look at the team itself and see who's looking good and who's not. Gowdy is off to a pretty decent spring. Mike Farr is looking good. Hopefully he stays healthy. Can tell me who's probably not going to make the starting team this year, but he's got a future. Mike Scout thinks he's a potential 4-star. I'd like to see him develop a little bit better. Man, that starting lineup looks really good. or starting rotation. Berger, he's struggling a little bit, but he's young. He'll probably start in AAA this year. Everybody's looking good in the pitching staff, so that's good news. Lineup: Keenan Smith looking pretty good. Lassane having a fairly decent spring. Sluzarek looking really good. Barge looking really good. Devers, he's not showing any power yet, but I think he'll, as the season goes on, I think he'll get close to maybe 20, 25 home runs. And Juanachoa, boy, he's struggling. Batting 129, but 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. That's pretty good in terms of the rest of the team. Lewis is, 273 batting average. He needs to get a little bit closer to 300 for me to be happy. So we're still winning though. We're 10 up to 11. It's a minor league injury. Let's see what the news is before. Barrios for the Mets. He's going to be out for 5 to 6 weeks. He's their best starter. And we got another trade proposal. Chris Fried. Nah, that's not even a no-brainer. Not going to play him. So we're 3 weeks in. We're at 12-7. Not looking too bad. I'm going to take a closer look at this and probably play out the rest of the spring training, and we'll come back next episode and see what we're going to land on in terms of starting lineup and starting rotation. I'm hoping that we'll keep up this play. I'd like to at least have a pretty good spring. I know it doesn't mean everything, but it's nice to start out winning. And hopefully we'll stay healthy too. But that's going to do it for this episode. I may have cut it a little short, but I didn't want to get too bogged down in playing out every game. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. I did just pick up or pre-order 19 over the weekend, so I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that when it comes out. And I'll probably before I do any playthroughs, I might just do a few videos of just kind of looking at how things are going. I might the first thing I want to try out is that in-game engine, to be honest, to see how that looks. So I might do a few videos where I just look at the settings and look at the screens and the interface, and before I get too deep into a playthrough. But I'll see you next episode when we'll probably be starting out the season and see how good we can do and see if we can repeat as the National League East Division winners. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.